There is a song people play when they want to feel invincible, when they're getting ready to go out, when they cross a finish line, when they need to believe, just for 3 minutes, that nothing can touch them. That song is Don't Stop Me Now. It might be the most joyful record ever made, a burst of pure light, a man at the piano telling the whole world he is having the time of his life. But here is what nobody tells you. The people who loved Freddie Mercury most did not hear a celebration when this song came out. They heard a warning. One of his own bandmates has admitted he felt uneasy every time he heard it, because he knew what was really happening to the man singing those unstoppable words. This is the story of how the happiest song in the world was, to the people closest to it, a cry from a man who couldn't slow down.
To understand the song, you have to understand where Freddie was in 1978. On paper, he was untouchable. Queen were one of the biggest bands on the planet. The money was endless, the fame was total, and Freddie had thrown himself into a new life to match it. These were the years of the parties that have become legend. Munich and New York, nights that ran until the sun came up and then kept going. Champagne, excess, a whirl of people, a refusal to ever let the music stop. He had built a persona around it, a dazzling, untouchable showman who lived at full speed and dared the world to keep up. And it was thrilling. From the outside, it looked like a man having the greatest time anyone had ever had. But the people who really knew him could see the other side of it. A man moving that fast is usually running from something, and a man who never lets the party end is often afraid of what happens when it does. That was the man who sat down at the piano and wrote an anthem to never stopping.
And what he wrote was extraordinary. Don't Stop Me Now doesn't build slowly, it launches. A few gentle piano notes, almost tender, and then the whole thing takes off like something breaking free of gravity. Freddie made himself the hero of it. He cast himself as a force of nature, a rocket, a burning star tearing across the sky, a man traveling at the speed of light with no brakes and no intention of finding any. Every line is a declaration. I am unstoppable. I am having the time of my life. Do not get in my way. And the music matches it perfectly. It's fast, it's euphoric, it's relentless. It doesn't pause to breathe, because the whole point is that it never stops. It is by design the sound of a man at the absolute peak of his powers, refusing to come down. And that is exactly what worried the 3 people standing closest to him.
Because Brian May didn't hear a party. Queen's guitarist has spoken about this in the years since, with real honesty. When Don't Stop Me Now arrived, he didn't feel the joy everyone else felt. By his own account, the song made him uncomfortable because he could see what was underneath it. He knew that the speed Freddie was singing about wasn't just a metaphor. The man really was living that fast, and some of it was genuinely dangerous. The lifestyle, the excess, the refusal to stop. Brian looked at his friend hurtling through the middle of all of it, and this euphoric anthem sounded less like a triumph and more like a man describing his own spiral and calling it freedom. And so, reportedly, Brian pulled back from it. He didn't throw himself behind the song the way he might have. He couldn't fully celebrate something that felt, to him, like watching someone he loved run toward a cliff with a smile on his face. The rest of the world heard the happiest song of the decade. His own bandmate heard a distress signal.
And here's what makes the song so extraordinary and so unsettling. Both of them were right. Listen to it one way, and it is pure, uncomplicated joy. A man in love with being alive and generous enough to hand that feeling to everyone who hears it. But listen to it with what Brian knew, and it turns into something else. A man moving too fast to feel anything catching up with him. The loneliness we've heard in his other songs, the parts of himself he couldn't say out loud, all of it left behind in the blur if he just keeps accelerating. Don't Stop Me Now stops being a boast and becomes a plea. Please, don't make me slow down, because I don't know what I'll have to feel if I do. That's the genius buried in it. Freddie took the feeling of losing control and made it sound like the best night of your life. And maybe, to him, those were the same thing. Here's the part that almost nobody remembers. When Don't Stop Me Now came out as a single at the start of 1979, it was not a huge hit. It did fine. It reached the top 10 in Britain and then drifted back down, one more good Queen single in a catalogue full of them. Nobody stood up in 1979 and declared it a masterpiece. It wasn't one of the songs the band built their live shows around. It didn't define the era the way you'd expect the future greatest feel-good song of all time to define its moment. It just quietly existed. And Brian May's discomfort meant that even inside the band, it never quite got the champion it deserved. Years later, he admitted as much. He said he'd underrated it, that he hadn't given it the love it was owed, and that he came to regret that. One of the most beloved songs in the history of recorded music, spent its first years being quietly overlooked, even by the men who made it.
So how did it become what it is now? Slowly, and mostly after Freddie was gone. Over the decades, something happened that nobody planned. The song refused to fade. It crept into films and television, into the exact moments when a character needed to feel unstoppable. And every time, it landed. Then it started winning things. Polls for the greatest feel-good song ever recorded. Studies where scientists tried to work out mathematically what makes a song make people happy, and landed on this one. Wedding dance floors, stadiums, kitchens at 7 in the morning. It became the sound the whole world reaches for when it needs a lift. The song that was quietly overlooked in 1979, slowly and then completely, became one of the most loved recordings ever made. The world caught up to it. It just took 20 years, and Freddie wasn't there to see it happen.
And that's the ache underneath the joy now, because we know how the story ends. We know that the man singing about being unstoppable, about going on forever, about having so much life in him, had far less time than anyone realized. Freddie died in 1991. And this song, the one about never slowing down, kept going without him, louder every year. Now it plays at moments he'll never see. It plays at weddings of people who were born after he died. It plays at funerals, believe it or not, because some people want to leave the world on exactly that note, at full speed, laughing. And Brian May, who once couldn't bear to celebrate it, made his peace with it. He came to understand that whatever fear was hiding underneath the song, what the world took from it, was pure, defiant joy. The warning he heard, and the joy everyone else heard, turned out to be the same gift.
So the next time you put on Don't Stop Me Now to feel invincible, listen for both layers. The joy that's really there, the genuine, roaring love of being alive that only Freddie could deliver, and underneath it, the man who couldn't slow down, singing his way through the fastest, most fragile chapter of his life, and turning it into something that would outlast him by generations. He made his most reckless moment sound like the happiest one, and then he gave it to the world to keep. That's why it never ages. It isn't just happy. It's a man refusing to stop in every sense of the word, and daring you to refuse with him. If you'd like to hear the real stories behind the songs you thought you already knew, stay with us. There's a whole catalogue of them, and every single one hides something like this. The next time you listen, hear the man,
not just the anthem.